Hello, everybody.
Hi, we're here, guys. We're just gonna share a screen and then we're gonna start, and it's gonna be a lot less messy than it is right now.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Hello.
Are you looking for what I just sent you, Mark? Oh, okay. Under VITF?
Susanna?
Yes, sir.
Estelle is in the attendee status.
Oh, okay. I thought I promoted her. As soon as we put this chart up, I will get the
Actually,
clicker back.
yep, I just have a little problem and that.
Oh, because it wasn't.
Sideways.
I think you have to go back to the file itself and open the file and rotate the file, sit and rotate.
I know she might also be between calls, so if she is unable to join, we can
Okay.
chime in.
Ooh, Mark, you're ending up someplace you did not want to be. I tell you what, I could just send it, I can resend, no,
But it's Mark and not me. I just panic when I do that.
I panic usually.
Yeah.
Share a screen. I don't know how to do that, but.
Right. Looks pretty adaptive.
Bottom right corner, fourth icon from the top. From the bottom right.
Yeah, there it is up. There we go.
Okay.
Good. Very good.
All right,
That's good.
great.
Power be the millennial.
Okay. All right, I think,
Is Scott coming here?
I thought so.
I don't know. Oh, I don't know.
We can cover it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you question if I prepared.
All right, I'll take the picture back. Thank you. Okay, let's, wait, I can't see anyone in the meeting though now, Mark.
Sorry,
I can't see anyone in the meeting.
no, so, then, just, you wanna see them? Click, yeah,
Click.
no, here.
Okay, great. All right, hi, everyone. Wait, I'm sorry, before I say hi, Mark, how will I be able to see attendees, panelists? Because I'm not seeing that
When you're in
now.
screen share, that's hard to do. So, you
right.
can get out of screen share for a while,
I'm
introduce, and
gonna
then
do
go back.
stop
There
share.
you go.
You could see participants.
Yeah, if you
there.
click participants, does that open it?
But stop share.
Yeah,
But it-
Stop share.
but you can just keep that to the side.
All right, I'll stick this over here.
Yeah.
Fine, just gunk everything up.
Yeah.
Okay, hi, everyone. Welcome to, this is the May meeting of the Human Services Committee of Community Board 2. We're being recorded. So welcome to people who are in the room and online and in the ether. Our agenda tonight is we're gonna meet the Village Interagency Task Force, and I wanna thank two of the three chairs of that agency, that organization, that whatever, that force, for being here in person. And I want to thank the members from the district attorney's office who are here with us online. I'll start in by introducing the committee, and then we'll go to our guests. So I'm Susanna Aaron, I'm the chair of the committee.
I'm Ryder Kessler, I'm a committee member.
I'm Kate Berger, committee member.
Rachel Yomalinsky, a public member. Juliet Kay, committee member. And I'm Anna Smith, also committee member.
And would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I'm Brian Maloney. I'm a co-chair for what we call VITF for short.
That will help us.
I'm a village resident, and I started a neighborhood action group a few years ago. So that's it.
Where do you live?
On West Fourth and McDougal.
I'm Vanessa Warren. I'm also a co-chair. I live in the area. I live on Washington Place, about 1.5 blocks from Washington Square Park, the president of Washington Place Block Association as well.
And Peter, I think Estelle is not here yet, right? I don't see her. So Peter and Eric, you want to go ahead? Peter?
I'm Peter Say, the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Eric?
Eric?
Hi, everyone. Yes, Estelle will hopefully be joining soon, but if not, we're happy to answer any questions and dive into the task force. My name is Eric Straza. I am the Supervisor of Community Engagement for the Manhattan DA's office.
So tell me, I'm going to start out with some, so the way we're going to do things is that I'm going to start a moderated discussion with our guests online and in the room, and we'll open it to, it's a very small group, so anyone who's in the room would like to raise their hands. If we'll take questions from our committee, we'll take questions from anyone on the community board who is not on our committee, and then we'll open it up if there's anyone from the public who would like to ask questions. And then we will go into business session where the committee, everyone is welcome to continue to listen, but we conduct our business, which is where we decide whether we're going to write a resolution or not, or whatever. We do have quorum tonight, which is a miracle. Thank God. Okay, so the first question is, what is the Village Interagency Task Force? I think that most people don't even know of its existence. And I think this is a question really for the DA's office. Tell me about this model. How did, I have actually a little agenda for myself. Why was it formed? What is the model? Where else has it been used? How does it work?
Yeah, so I can take that. Thank you so much, Susanna. So I think it helps to just contextualize it in the history of the model, what we basically call the interagency hub model. So you'll hear us refer to it as like an interagency hub, the task force, the interagency task force, the Village Interagency Task Force. So this first started on 125th Street. In partnership with the Business Improvement District up there. Basically, we saw that a lot of concerns and issues were being directed to law enforcement in our office, whether that's the DA's office or NYPD, because they're issues that largely have historically been handled by law enforcement. We can get into a little bit of the specifics in terms of concerns that the hubs are trying to address, but things that come to mind are people with underlying conditions, whether that be related to homelessness, mental health, substance use or addiction, things like that, as well as things across the spectrum of things relating to licensing and permitting, things like buildings, things that just across the board, I think function as independent parts to a broader system or engine, if you will, that all need to be functioning together. So we saw that there weren't as much, there really wasn't a lot of communication between all of those parts. There's the 311 complaints. Certain agencies get complaints and they are kind of all operating in silos, not communicating, not sharing resources, and not identifying the gaps and where they exist. Because oftentimes there are things that agencies wish they knew about or wish that they can do, but they are just not engaged in the conversations to discover what alternatives are out there. So we started with the Business Improvement District, like I said, on 125th Street, basically convening everyone in bi-weekly meetings. It's helped, and I think that this has kind of evolved into something that the Village Task Force is doing and the Midtown Task Force is doing, which I'll get to in a second. But to separate out the issues through different quality of life concerns, infrastructure, conditions, versus trying to get people the help that they need with underlying conditions, like I mentioned before. So we saw some success on 125th Street. I think that in each area where we pilot one of these programs, we're starting small and really narrowed in on a specific few block radius to make sure that the model is effective and is right for the concerns that the community is seeing. So we saw some success on 125th Street. We saw similar levels of quality of life concerns and issues, whether that be related to on the people and the individual level, all the way to the there's sanitation issues that are not being addressed. There's discarded needles that are not being picked up. Leftover jersey barricades that DOT might be able to pick up, scaffolding, things like that. And I think that the underlying premise for us is we're always looking through the lens of how are we instilling sustainable public safety in addressing these quality of life issues. And so we know that each one of those things adds up to create some kind of public safety externality. So like scaffolding, for instance, we know that people often congregate underneath scaffolding. And then that can lead to, Suzanne, I can't hear you, but I see you
No, I
nodding
like the word
affirmatively.
externalities. I was just,
Yeah, okay.
I love that word.
Okay, great. I'll try to shoehorn it in a few more times. And so things like that, for instance. So we saw that the 8th Avenue corridor kind of represented similar issues to 125th Street. So we started up the Midtown Community Improvement Coalition, really to address the 8th Avenue corridor. The confines are like 35th to 45th Street from 7th to 9th Avenues. And since we've seen success there, we've opened it up into the kind of northwest region, into Hell's Kitchen. We know that there's a lot of different neighborhoods that can benefit from initiatives like these and this level of communication and cooperation. So we're really trying to expand it as much as we can and as much as feasible. So that leads me to the third one that we've rolled out. That's the Village Interagency Task Force. We heard through a bunch of meetings with community leaders. Vanessa and Brian were at a lot of those kind of initial touch points with the community, where we were hearing kind of the lack of communication response and just acknowledgement from a lot of the city agencies. So we thought that this would be a great candidate to roll out another initiative. So I can let Vanessa and Brian go into a little bit more of the specifics on, what is the catchment area, what issues are top of mind for them, and by extension, the community. But otherwise, I think just to get into the kind of what the model looks like in real time in practice, Susanna, I know that you sat in on the one this week. Oftentimes, and this is how it works in Midtown too, there are two separate meetings, one for infrastructure improvements and one for really digging into the individual people on an individual level. We know that everyone's needs are completely different, and really the end goal is to build trust with them, change their behavior, and try to get them the help that they need. We know that a lot of services that people can avail themselves to are accepted on a voluntary basis. So that means that there could be service providers. There's so many different service providers and outreach teams that are responsible for any given neighborhood. They're oftentimes not communicating and not saying, oh, well, I actually have a great relationship with this person, or I found out the other day that this person loves to paint, and maybe another outreach team can use that information to connect with them, build some trust, and get them to recognize that the city is somebody who these agencies are people who want to help, who really have their best intentions at heart. And so I think that that's what those meetings are focused on. So we meet bi-weekly.
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you.
Sure.
I'm going way ahead, and I need to slow down
really
at
all
some
over
point.
the place.
But when you say we, who is we? I'm talking to the DA's office, but there's also the mayor's offices involved. So can you just explain that? And also, does this have a budget? Where does that budget come from? Those things.
So there is really not a budget, though we have, when the opportunity presents itself, whether it's our office, whether it's elected officials who are sitting in on these meetings and they're realizing, oh, there's a huge issue here that could potentially be solved through some, or at least facilitated through some kind of influx in funding. That has become part of the discussions.
Discretionary funds, but you're not a line item in the mayor's budget or any.
Exactly.
You're not a line item in anybody's budget. This is actually, and in some ways I can understand why, because what you're really doing is just providing access to agencies. We'll talk about the process and how it works, but it does seem to be more about providing access than providing funding for specific. Okay, so
so when I say we too,
yeah,
it's really the royal we on my part. It's really the co-chairs in large part, and it's the mayor's office who's an integral partner here, bringing in, because a lot of these agencies are mayoral agencies, so they're bringing in the partners. They're bringing in leaders from these agencies too. I think a really key part is that they're not the, necessarily the community liaison level of the community affairs teams. They are oftentimes higher ranking leaders who are able to make decisions on issues. They're able to more insightfully comment on, oh, can we do something a different way? Or maybe we should try this out. brainstorm how something can look differently. So that's a really big part of it too.
Yeah, Mark has been attending these meetings. I've attended two of the social service ones, and it's impressive how many people from different levels of government are there. I mean, Brian Stetton of the Mayor's Office of Mental Health is there, and NYPD, there's a DHS. I mean, they're all there in person, 20 people in a room. It's kind of unbelievable. And also, just to clarify, these are not public meetings. Can you explain that and explain the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that that's very intentional. I think that we want to keep it really narrowly focused on the work that can be done. And I think that that public input and feedback in large part comes from the community co-chairs. I think whether it's the co-chairs for the Village Task Force and just the idea of having community co-chairs in general is very intentional. So being able to stay laser focused in on certain issues and really focus on here's the list of things we want to accomplish. We're going to move down the list. Who's responsible for this thing and how can you help us find a solution? I think that having it be closed meetings where it's really just the public sector leaders that are there and the stakeholders who are able to kind of bring their resources to the table to solve those issues. I think that that's where we see the most success when we can stay focused on that.
Yeah, Ryder.
I'm sorry, I just want to ask a little more specific question about the participants. So it sounds like this is a task force convened jointly between the DA's office and the mayor's office with a set of standing participants who are predominantly representatives of agencies. Then there is also a set of standing participants who are community members. Is that right? And I know the folks here are not employees of the city, right? They are folks in the community. So what is the ratio of this is a space for people in government to convene across agencies to talk about this neighborhood, and how much of it is engaging community members, hearing from community members?
We can ask that question to Brian and Vanessa, I think, actually.
I mean, Vanessa and I, over the past couple of years, have really created a groundswell of folks in the neighborhood and this zone to communicate like what our issues are. Like, what are we seeing on the streets? Who are the people we're seeing? How can we get them help? So we, before our meetings, you can see there's the infrastructure meeting, there's a social services meeting, and then occasionally we'll have businesses come into the task force to talk about their issues. We gather hundreds of issues and problems, and then we take that to the task force and say, just for instance, I'll say this is a punch list for the infrastructure. Like I'm co-chairing all the quality of life and the security and safety in the area, and that could include a pylon that's tripping. There's trees that are blocking the sidewalk. It gets pretty granular. We have every infrastructure meeting, we post what we need to have accomplished. We assign an agency to it, whether it's DOB or DOT or the Department of Environmental Protection for noise. Like, we get really granular, and then we hold these agencies accountable. Like they
come back and they have to tell you.
They come back, and so to your point, like the community voice is very large with Vanessa's group of folks, my team, and then certainly Scott Hobbs, who's the executive director for Village Alliance. He's managing all of the business concerns.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think that, our meetings, when we have these every 2 weeks, they're just an hour. So we have all of these issues, pages, and we're not really, the community is not really commenting on the issues, right? We already have them, and then we just go through very quickly. Hey, there's this horrible scaffolding at this area, or Stumptown had horrendous flooding, so the DEP fixed that in like a day, and we just go issue, assess.
I think my question is, and just like, it sounds like there's the Village Alliance, a local block association, whatever institution you represent, like, just what are the non-governmental community nexuses on this task force? How are they selected? How many are there? I trust the.
So I can, if I can chime in really quickly on it, because just to go back to your question, the first half of what you outlined was basically dead on.
Yeah.
So but it's more accurate to say, I think, that really the standing meeting, it's a lot of the same people. We're just it really just grows and grows as we realize that more agencies or more organizations could be helpful for certain issues. But it's really that the entire meeting is made up of people from the mayor's office, their staff, often the mayor's office of public safety and the deputy mayor of public safety's team, mayoral agencies, community-based organizations and nonprofits. Oftentimes those are outreach teams that are really the people on the ground speaking to the people who are in need of services, people who are really in the weeds on what people need. And then then there's elected officials offices who are also there that kind of play their own distinct role. So the only standing people who are really non-governmental community members are the co-chairs. And I think that, again, that's by design and that's intentional. I think one part of the thinking too is something that was already alluded to, just the idea that for any one agency to be a co-chair would mean that that agency would not as impartially be held responsible. I think a big key part of the task force is accountability. So even though the mayor's office and our office are starting these initiatives, we wouldn't want to be a co-chair because we're one of the agencies that need to be held accountable too. So I think that was really critical to the thinking there.
But in terms of the other side, right? So there's let's consider all the agencies are the resources. The contracted organizations, for example, the MOC, Manhattan Agricultural Housing Works. There are other private organizations who are contracted one way or the other with the city, or maybe even not, because Father Jonah is a member of the church. So those are all considered the resources, essentially. And then you guys have selected 3 people to serve as the chairs, essentially endowing you with an enormous responsibility and privilege to have access to this and to represent the community there. So what we didn't mention is that the 3rd chair is Scott Hobbs, who runs the Village Alliance. So that's a business perspective. And I'm going to guess that you identified Brian and Vanessa because of work that they had done earlier. You might have identified different members of the community, but you identified them because they were very already involved in these issues. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're hitting on the nail on the head with Scott too, trying to get a broad spectrum of co-chairs representative of different perspectives and different issues. I think Vanessa, Brian, and Scott, you guys all have each of your expertise, and I think that has been really cool to see. But also just being vocal, being proven community leaders already, being involved in these issues. I think those are all things that we were looking for, and things that we found Vanessa, Brian, and Scott did exceptionally well.
I just want to go over this chart so that I can stop sharing the screen because it's driving me nuts. So the Village Interagency Task Force, what we're seeing on the screen is that it has one arm in the mayor's office, and there are 3 people identified there, one arm in the DA's office, and we have 2 of the 3 of you here, and we know that Estelle would like to be here, but she's busy doing something. And then Vanessa, who's here, focuses on social services. Brian focuses on infrastructure. Scott focuses on business, but all 3 of you are at every meeting and share the issues. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now so that I can, that's better. Okay, I'm going to open it in general to questions, but I would like to start by just drilling into the details. So how does it work? How does it work? We have meetings every 2 weeks. Right?
Well, let's start with the footprint.
Oh, right. Where is it?
We created with the DA's office and NYPD what we're calling the red zone, and these are the hyper critical areas in the village.
We'll share this in the report. They can't see it. We'll
From
describe it.
from like Bleecker to 9th Street, up 6th Avenue, we call it the 6th Avenue corridor, and then the east and west of the park, from the park to 6th, and then from 6th to like 7th Avenue. And this 3rd, 4th, Washington Place, Waverly Place, 8th Street, 9th Street, and the subway stops.
Oh, the subway stops.
And the sort of the ground zero part of it, where we're finding the very, very center of it all is the northwest corner of the park. The drug activity, the drug use, the blatant drug use, the encampments, the needle debris. Since January, they have picked up 2,800 needles just in that area of the park. So there's real specific, we've gotten very granular on where we place our resources. And we're in touch with all the agencies practically every day, including the NYPD. And when I say, like, we're grateful because we do have the attention of the mayor. Our community council was so adamant about getting this task force. They pulled it together. Mayor Adams said, let's get this task force and let's put resources behind it, because I don't know where any of you live, but I live in the red zone and we live in the red zone. And last summer was unlivable for us, unlivable. And it was unbelievable, where my husband and my two kids, we were ready to move after 40 years of living in this city. It is that bad. And I think the voices got very loud at the community council meetings.
Which are, just to clarify, the community council is the meetings at that six precincts for the community.
So what we have been doing is really focused on what we call the red zone. And then there's a sort of a yellow zone that we knew there would be spill off, like displacement. When you kind of take care of this particular area, they're going to displace. Well, after 6 months, we're seeing exactly that. We're seeing real successes in our red zone, but we're getting a lot of complaints from the community with the outlying areas. So you want to add to that?
I feel like even though this is the red zone and the yellow zone, people are flexible. They realize that these are human beings. They're not like rooted to a bench in the northwest corner. So from our side, from, the social services side, all of the different outreach providers, which actually took a while for us to kind of locate and determine who is doing outreach in our area. A lot, we have Shaft and Goddard and DHS. They didn't even know each other. And some, the mayor's office knew, DHS knew Goddard, but Shaft wasn't involved. Father Jonah from St. Joe's also does outreach. So it was really good to put all of them together because they know all of the same people.
Right.
Some of them have better relationships. Sometimes it's a waste of resources to have people with the not great relationships with some of the, people we're seeing in Washington Square Park. Maybe focus on other people, and the agency that has a really good relationship focuses on that person. And also, you've seen, I think one of the goals also of the task force is to identify holes, right, in service.
Where are the gaps?
And where the gaps.
The other thing that I wanted just to raise,
we're trying to
talking about people.
Yeah.
People, very specific at the human resources meeting that you guys have. You come in with a patch of papers, confidential, thrown out after the meeting, that has photos and names and facts about people who seem to be particularly in trouble in the neighborhood. And you really go through them name by name. I haven't been to one of your infrastructure meetings, but
they're kind of boring.
No, they're great and very effective, because that is, all of these agencies can do something about the infrastructure.
And they can see it
pretty much immediately. This takes time. We saw yesterday, we do have some service issues, I'll say, with like transportation. When someone is ready to go into a shelter, how long does it take to get a car here to pick them up? And you can lose them if
We've lost a couple.
We've lost a couple for exactly that reason. Or where
go for inpatient?
Where I could go for inpatient. We're still working on that. And there doesn't seem to be money in the budget for it. But, at least if we identify these things over time, maybe those holes and those gaps will be filled. And we would never know it unless all of the agencies were in the same room saying the same thing, like, we're not sure, or let me put that together for you and stuff like that. So,
one point too, which is important. The Department of Homeless Services told us yesterday that they've placed 42 through the efforts of the task force. They've found either shelter or housing for 42 people. So there's a lot of compassion. We're talking about humans. We understand that. But Luis Martinez, who is part of the task force, I forget his title. He's chief of something. He's
at DHS?
No, he's with the mayor's office.
Community Link?
No.
He is senior advisor to the mayor's chief of staff.
So I mean, he said residents in the community need some relief as well. Like, to have to walk over, users who have needles in their arms, it's sad. But we also need the relief. So they're very committed, in a like a holistic humanitarian way to get this issue fixed because it's no longer okay. Like, it's no longer okay.
I just want to say to there's one of the attendees has your hand up. We will come to the public. We're just starting out at the committee level and the board level, and then we'll come to you. So bear with us. Please feel free to raise your hands and ask questions.
Yeah, when you say you've been successful, like, how do you measure that? What does that mean?
Well, it's easy for the infrastructure success,
Obviously,
right?
yes,
And that's in one way really helping us go back to the community and say, your city's really working hard for you. Like, you can't just point your fingers and say somebody's not doing their job. We have metrics in place on how many people have been touched, how many people are out there. One of our big successes yesterday was finally getting, Vanessa has been like amazing, finally getting them to talk to each other. That's a big success.
Who's they?
The human services providers out, we've been amazed at so many times. They're like, well, what do you do? Because I don't know what we do, right? And way more than I do on
I also
that.
think like DHS, they just did a month pilot program they went out to do outreach with the NYPD. that ends unfortunately on the 31st. We're trying to keep that extended because DHS, their outreach providers, the people actually on the ground, going to the northwest corner sometimes is a little intimidating. They said they sometimes would get harassed by the people there and they'd get someone's attention and then a drug dealer might come up and then they'll just run away. So having the NYPD kind of, not a huge presence, but like a couple of officers allows them to engage with people without the distraction of others. So
we're getting resources
that was,
to your point in terms of success. Like, we can't pull levers in terms of what's on the books and laws and voluntary versus involuntary. But, they're getting new PEP officers in the park. I think there's more of an understanding that even the smaller crimes that are being committed in the park no longer we should not turn our face to them. Mayor Adams says, no more justifying the unjustifiable. And I walk through the park with my kids, and how do I explain to them that these people are breaking the law, right?
Right. I mean, I grew up along the park. I understand. The corner has been a problem for decades.
Yeah.
This is not new. And I think the only period of time that that corner was not problematic was when they literally had an NYPD trailer on the park and they were arresting everybody and it was horrific.
Yeah.
I was a kid in that era and it was the Giuliani years and like you literally couldn't walk through Washington Square Park without seeing like herds of cops rushing people, which was also not, I think, the environment we want to create again.
I don't think anyone is absolutely 100%, but there's got to be a middle.
Yeah.
Because now it's like
I just
encampments. I've lived in the park, near the park for 18 years and in New York for 40. I've never seen such debris. I've never seen, and it's like sad.
Or I had I told this story yesterday, we had a guy die on my next door neighbor's stoop yesterday. And so, they have to, that did not happen. Like, I don't know.
October, we had a woman.
I have lived here a long time too. And I remember sitting in the park and it was very reasonable. I didn't see what I'm seeing now.
No, I'd say that as a community board, we noticed after, I would say, since the pandemic.
Yes.
That the park kind of went crazy. And in fact, we have identified that union of those three issues, right? Mental health, substance homelessness as the primary concern for the neighborhood right now, for the community district right now.
And it is that, I think it's also like, look, I am all for someone, if you want to do your drugs, but don't come and defecate again on my stoop for the 10th time.
Sure.
Like, it's just really, so anyway, we're being as humane as we can.
Yeah.
And I think the city is really stepping up and really looking at how we also can get a little relief. Because that's what our community is really saying. It's like, we really can't, this has now gotten to a point where I can't even leave my steps because I have 5 users shooting up in front of my apartment.
Ryder, I'm sorry, no,
Go ahead.
Just to follow up on that, how do you communicate with the community? I mean, do people know how to come to you and say someone defecated on my stoop? I mean, what do you, and how do you report back to the community? So both
Thank you.
corrections.
Let me, if I can.
this is one way.
Yeah, but we, with Vanessa, we've started something called the Neighborhood Action Group. And it's short for NAG, basically. Because 3 years ago, I couldn't believe what I was seeing on my street on West 4th. And so I called the precinct, and Sergeant Houlihan said to me, well, we have no 311 calls or no 911 calls. And I was like, oh my God, walk down my street right now. There are 15 users dealer. Okay. So he said, I said, I'm going to pull together a group. We have these WhatsApp chats, and every day we feed in, here's the address, here's the encampment, or here's the needle debris, or here's the trash, or whatever, and in mass, we submit 311 or 911 calls. And it's been highly effective. We have about 8 or 9 NAG groups in the village, in the problem areas that frequently, right? We see something, we write it down, and this is like in our free time, it's like, we're not.
We have like, so, I just mentioned I'm the Block Association president, so we'll have our own small group for our street, and then 9th Street has their own group, 8th Street.
I see.
And we all pull it together.
And then we have one major NAG group with like 32 people on it that they might all be people like me who are collecting the concerns of their block.
And then
I
that
think
mailing
the
list.
question-
And then you could also always find us. We're at every single community council meeting. We are at the BTBs. So you're always free to like come and tell us what you want to some focus on.
I think also the flip of that is reporting out, because again, you do admirable work, and I know you don't get paid for it. And of course, as I said, you have a big responsibility because you have access to these agencies that not even we on the community board can get all those groups in a room.
So communicating out.
So communicating out is going to be very important.
We have a list
So we
of
figure
about
periodically
300,
we'll have you.
300 on our email list. Then it goes to all the other associations who then feed it out to their folks. So our team will, after a community council meeting, give some bullet points, or, we'll do a VITF overview with successes because people want to know.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you want to be on that list, I'm happy to put you on it because the more the merrier.
Well, I think also we would ask you to come periodically to the community board. I think that's, we always, we pull it out of a report. And so that's another way of.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One is along the lines of what we've just been talking about. Or maybe it's more, I'll ask the question, which is, how do the 311 calls and reports interface? Is the punch list inclusive of every 311 submission that happens in the red or yellow zone? Like, I certainly have submitted 311. Let me.
I understand. I do understand.
Because I think the kind of question behind the question is, one, there must be 311 complaints that aren't coming through the NAG WhatsApp chats and so forth. And so are those getting equal attention to the ones that are coming through your pipeline? And I think related to that is a thought about kind of democratizing access to the set of city stakeholders, which could be by expanding awareness of the groups that you can join, but also maybe formalizing it so that the elected officials' offices are taking stuff in, or that the elected officials are sending stuff out because they have access to all the voters. I have another question about kind of addressing the issues, but I'll start there.
Let me say.
And feel free to start with Peter and Eric to weigh in on this to the extent you can.
Commissioner Tisch has established what they're calling a quality team, Q team, right? And that's going to start tracking. NYPD. That's going to begin to track 311 quality of life issues like infrastructure, noise, parking problems. So to your point, they're finally tracking those through 311. And we'll have more transparency for that. So that's a great question. These are all from the community who send it through the task force.
Or through Village Alliance too, like
Oh, sure.
the,
That's-
business owners will go directly to Village Alliance and some other community people too, and then
Right.
Bring
he's
it
on the
in.
task force too. So
Yeah.
it's not just
Yeah,
like
It's not just you and your
No.
It's
pets.
not just
No.
Niagara, we're
It's not you and your pals.
right, or when I could have, exactly.
100%. So finally, like, there's some real hope, I think, with Commissioner Tisch's press conference last month, which we were there, where they're really giving some visibility to these quality of life issues. Look, we have one of the safest neighborhoods in the city. Like, and we were told yesterday, like, none of us are afraid of being shot. Okay, that's kind of what we're saying.
Yeah.
But the 311 quality of life, the community council did a quality of life survey, and I can't spout the stats, but yeah, people are not feeling it. So the mayor's office, I think in large part to the hubs, the 3 hubs, they're really focused on, what can we do to make all New Yorkers feel, like they're feeling good.
And it's each area, like Eric mentioned, there's the Harlem hub, there's the Midtown hub, there's our hub. I think Harlem has different issues than we have. Midtown and us, we kind of share those same issues. We've been to the Midtown hub meetings. While our crime rates are low, our drug arrests for felony drug, I think they're double what they were last year to date. So, that is an obvious problem. We can see it. We could all see it.
This isn't my second question. This is a follow-up to my first question, which maybe is for Eric and Peter, which is like the 311 calls or submissions through the app or whatever that aren't on this punch list. Like, where are they?
Yeah, so I was actually just about, you beat me to it. I was gonna piggyback on what was already said. So those 311 complaints are still being addressed in due course, like in the ordinary course of these agencies' work. So this is not a what's the word that I'm looking for?
It's a pipeline.
It's not instead of the 311 complaints. It's simply to supplement it. We've heard from agencies when we're meeting with them, for instance, oh, this is an interesting issue. We haven't heard this before, or we've gotten tons of different complaints. I think that it's important to keep a balance there. I think just at this week's meeting, for instance, DHS was saying, it is great. We're focusing on all of these people that are having a disproportionate impact on the neighborhood and need to and are in need of services. They're very much in plain view and impacting residents. However, we also want to focus on the fact that we've placed another, 40 to 50 people in the last few months in housing. So I think it is keeping that balance, and I think we're also separately more than welcoming ideas to increase the reach of both input that we're getting or the reporting out that we're doing. I think the more that we can be doing that, is the better. So
my
thought
on that is to incorporate the non-NAG 311 calls into the same punch list, because the normal course of 311 engagement is not successful. And it sounds like people who aren't friends with the aren't on the WhatsApp chats probably don't get to have their submissions heard by an interagency task force.
But 311 is not there yet.
So
we've been trying to deal with them to get more
Like
because
drug activity.
like they don't have a lot. It's like very limited.
No, and I think
it's an extremely important piece of the puzzle too. I think that we also want to acknowledge that there's a lot of 311 reporting fatigue that goes on out there, where people have just kind of chalked it up to, these complaints are being sent out into the void and people aren't responding. So I think especially for us to call attention to specific complaints at these meetings, I think that goes a long way, but not with an eye toward neglecting any of the other complaints that are submitted really just ordinarily through 311.
When we actually started, we wanted the 311 data to focus on it. It doesn't really exist in that form.
Well, there are, people do call other places, and we can encourage that. They call the community board, they call their local electeds, and we can find a way of funneling all of that in.
I mean, I feel like
that's a really
you
good
should be on you should be on the staff for that.
Well, I'm invited to them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She goes.
So, okay, I'll ask my second question and then I'll shut up, which is, I think interagency coordination is great, but it is limited by the resources available from the agencies and especially from the nonprofit providers. Like, I think, we hear from Goddard and, the Manhattan Outreach Consortium more broadly, like the limiting factor on success is a lack of safe haven beds and, there's a lack of treatment opportunities for folks. And so it's like, you can have as many people talking to each other as you want, but unless there's actually, stuff that you can hook people up with, the interagency coordination can only go so far.
Go so far.
So I'm curious, like, what are the limiting factors on success? 42 people is great, but why not 52? Like, what is how? Because I think that's a place we could be using our platform. Do we need more stabilization beds? Do we need more inpatient psychiatric treatment? Do we need more legislative changes to involuntary commitment? Like, what can we be? What are the ways that this could all be more successful?
Well, let's turn that to what do you do and what do you don't do? What have you actually been able to do, and what is outside your reach?
We have had
Manage the
no
expectations.
problems finding shelter or safe havens. They actually just built a new one up in Harlem and they have a lot of space. So if someone's open to it, they could, I personally had someone that accepted services last week and they were like, yes, and it's brand new. So it's a very nice facility. The detox program is abysmal. Like, there is not one in Manhattan. Most of them, you need a Medicare or a photo ID, which a lot of people who are street homeless do not have. So we're still trying to work through, you heard Yumi from, we're trying to put together a list
She's from what organization?
She's from the mayor's office, Department of Mental Health, but she focuses on like peer counselors but she's also, there is not a Department of Addiction
This was
Services.
a woman at the meeting yesterday who was talking about the dearth of inpatient hospital
Yeah.
beds.
Right.
That is an issue, for sure. So we're trying to figure that out because, getting into most people do not accept shelter for a very long time. And when they finally do, that's just like step one, that's just getting them there. It doesn't mean they're going to stay there or get well or, get the services they need. So I feel like outreach only goes so far. And I personally don't know yet where they're going to find yes, everything you said you should be writing.
Well, and also,
Yeah.
you're talking about social service resources. I understand that also there's legal constraints.
Yeah.
There are laws
No one
about
forces them
voluntary, involuntary. There are questions about what happens if you sell drugs and are caught, who gets arrested, who doesn't, who's on bail, and there's constraints.
Also for all the infrastructure stuff, I'm looking at that scaffolding, like the big problem. And
It's a huge problem.
The laws, or I don't know why anybody would put up scaffolding. I mean.
Those are being shifted. There's some legislation, Eric Botcher and
Keith Powers that just passed. Yeah, there's going to be scaffolding.
and they're actually, the Department of Buildings is telling us they're going to create a whole new scaffolding design and that they're going to roll that out in a couple of months, which sounds like,
They're doing that with the design.
with design, and it's like going to be lighter, and the commissioner is like very excited because it's like, it's going to help, but it is a haven, right? It's a cover and it's a haven.
It's a
And
way in which infrastructure
It's
can,
also an eyesore,
yeah,
it's a beautiful city if you can't see it.
it's a way that physical infrastructure can contribute to.
But there must be laws why they put up this stupid.
And some of them are wise, but
Some of them are overly.
I'm gonna open.
But there's been some recent reform. I'll send out some articles.
I will say too, I think that we're kind of hitting on one of the magical components of the model is to have all of these conversations, these like transparent conversations going on about limitations, about resources, about gaps in the system that the very people at the meeting are a part of. Having then the elected officials, representatives, and sometimes the elected officials themselves almost be a fly on the wall to those conversations, and to hear firsthand somebody from a leader in the Department of Homeless Services say, well, if only we could figure that, like, if only we had a inpatient detox center that we would be able to send them to. And then it very quickly snowballs into like okay, this is something that people start throwing their weight behind, whether it's our office too, you know, we in partnership with Keep Powers, with the scaffolding legislation, things like that. I mean, everyone is kind of bringing the information back to their own teams.
Yeah. The
on
hope is
top
that
of the
it floats
community.
upstream.
Yes, and then it's exactly. So it's and I think we're open to as well, like just like in all of these other conversations. I will say we haven't hit a point in any of the hubs, I think, where we've said, okay, I think we've identified all the gaps, and I think we can now move forward on, you know, now we just need the funding. I think that it's a continual trial and error and work in progress to make sure that everything is working more seamlessly. But yeah, funding for more beds and things like that, more robust and comprehensive mental health assessment tools. I think you can kind of go across the spectrum, and there are tons of things that could be helpful in all of those spaces.
Emma?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So the 42 you said is a combination of like shelter placements, but also permanent
Just,
housing?
everything is shelter.
It's all, okay.
Because they kind of go there first and
Okay.
then they'll
Okay.
work through finding them a permanent.
And is that like across the city? Like you mentioned, you're drawing on resources uptown, like.
No one
do you know
has
what
to
that
go,
looks like?
no one has to go where they don't want to go. So
Yeah.
usually they'll take their preferences.
Yeah.
So if they want to stay in Manhattan,
Mhm.
this wait list might be this long. They want to go, you know, to a different
Yeah.
borough, it might be a different timeline. So it kind of works like that. They get on the wait list.
Yeah.
But
I
that
think
number
that's the
was,
most exciting
Yeah.
kind of metric for me. That feels like most.
yeah,
Like
42
places to
is a
stay.
lot.
just in our zone.
Yeah.
that's
So-
like might be double than it was last year. So
Yeah.
it's.
Do we know the 42, what was the breakdown of where was it congregate shelters, safe havens,
Almost all safe
housing.
havens. I know of a few that went to Longacre, which
Okay.
is like a more permanent kind of
Mhm.
shelter. But for the most part, they try to place them in safe havens. That seems to be where
People will go. It's
people
just,
want to
People who
go.
are chronically homeless, who don't want to be part of the shelter
Yeah.
system.
right, totally. And it's just, we always hear from the safe haven providers that they're at max capacity. They never have, you know, people want to stay there, whereas the congregate shelter system has a lot more turnover.
Well, there are many more people in the congregant system than there are on the safe.
Yeah, but I mean, but the long-term stay rates are a fraction of what they are in safe havens. And so I'm just like, where are all those vacancies? And are people not taking, if there are opportunities, are they not taking them because they're interborough? If there were another safe haven in Manhattan, South of 34th Street, would they take it? I think that's the kind of stuff where it's like, that really can inform what we advocate for in the
Sure.
board district.
I want to just open it up to, first of all, I want to say, I see that there's a question in the chat. I don't like to answer questions in the chat, if you don't mind. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. I'm going to ask Elizabeth Joya if you would like to ask a question or say something. You can speak, so if you just unmute yourself and lower your hand. Are you there? There you are.
Unmute.
We don't hear
She
you.
has her mute on.
You have your mute on, Elizabeth.
Oh, I don't think she meant to raise her hand.
Can she?
Oh, did you not mean to raise your hand?
Accidental, she says in the chat.
Accidental, sorry. Okay, there you go. All right. Any other questions? I think that one of the things that I would like to know more about, but I don't expect you guys to have that, are our stats, you know, like how many points of contact, how many, and what are all the different groups that are doing outreach, which I'm gonna have to do on a conversation with you offline.
I could do those real quick. We have DHS, which is obviously the actual government office.
Yeah.
So they do outreach. Goddard, which we call the MOC, so they're below 23rd Street, all the way to the tip of Manhattan.
That's the Manhattan
That's
Outreach
Manhattan.
Consortium.
Yes.
We've met with many times
Correct.
before under the umbrella of CUCS, and Goddard is the downtown portion of
They
that.
do seem very stretched thin, to be honest with you, because they cover such a large area. So we've had the most luck dealing directly with DHS. SHAP, which is not a government agency, that's just a SHAP.
Oh, yeah.
SHAP.
What is it? Do you know what it stands for?
I do, but I cannot remember. it. Okay.
Safe.
They're just a non-for-profit.
It's the, wait, did we get the acronym? Do we know what it stands?
Yeah.
It's, you did?
No.
It's
No.
the Street Homeless Advocacy Project.
Okay.
Homeless Advocacy Project. Those are the main ones. We have SOS in our area too, but that's only underground. In Midtown, they also have.
Is SOS a DHS program?
It's, I think it's a state program, but it's only underground.
Okay.
I'm sure it's a state program, actually. BRC, we don't have them here. Be Heard, we don't have them here. Show bands, we don't have them
We're
here.
gonna meet with them next month.
Please, we would
Okay.
love that.
We'd like to have Be Heard come as well.
Yeah, we would love to have, but they're not operating in our.
No,
Yeah.
the reason that we want to have them come is to see if that's something we should be asking for as a
Mhm.
community board. We make our requests, which get ignored, but we make our requests every fall.
Mhm.
And so it's sort of like a, position of, it's a statement of position as well as we make a bunch of requests. Anyway, so.
We would love to have Be Heard. So
Be Heard,
that's,
go on.
so our three main ones are DHS, Goddard, and basically Shep. They only come out one day a week.
And you don't deal with Greenwich House, do you? Because they also have.
They have
that.
outreach, but it's very, very small.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
like, not even
They're
once.
expanding their.
yeah, they have a
Center.
methadone.
They have a methadone clinic and they
there.
are also expanding that, which actually reminds me, I need to have them come in as well, so we can hear more
Yeah.
about that. What else?
This is not necessarily the service providers themselves, but I will say a really crucial part of the model is matching up the service providers and outreach teams to individuals who are, whether it's a faith-based leader, whether it's a community leader like Brian and Vanessa, people who are, the bid Scott at the Village Alliance's director of security, people who are engaging with people on a daily basis. And because they don't wear the hat of an outreach team or some kind of law enforcement agency, I think that the barriers are brought down a little bit and people are more willing to trust them, to communicate with them. So then sharing what they're able to find out, if it's helpful for an outreach team, I think goes a really long way. So not necessarily the service providers, but like St. Joseph's, obviously the bid, and then we have community leaders too.
Look at Calvin, the security supervisor for the Village Alliance.
He's amazing.
He has the most information to offer on the ground.
Yeah.
I will say one other thing. I will say that as a way of working together, just as an observation, when you go to the community council, there's a lot of angry people screaming. When you go to this, it's in a closed room and everyone's on a team, and there is that whole adversarial element kind of disappears, which is a wonderful aspect of that kind of workmanship. And then, of course, you have to just democratize it.
Yeah, I think the interagency approach is great. I realized I had a question, which was, I remember during COVID in 2020, when Gail Brewer was borough president, she allocated funding for a coalition of service providers to be working together, especially in the corner of the park. Is this
She did not
related?
allocate really any funding to it.
Okay, she
I think there was a.
promulgated the convening of it.
Yes, she organized it.
I guess how does that relate to this, if at all? And also because it sounds, I guess, is this, the reason I ask is
This come out of that.
or just they assembled a group of service providers, are all those folks in this now? Is that a list to look at to make sure all those people are included? Because it sounds like what you said earlier, that a lot of these service providers weren't talking to each other yet. I think any historical record of local service providers talking to each other is worth engaging to maybe bring more folks.
I've reached out to all of them.
Yeah.
Oasis, Connect, Be Heard, BRC, they don't operate here. So, some of them have very small catchment areas, like Connect only operates in 3 zip codes, more on the East Village. They're trying to grow, maybe.
But whoever was part of that does operate here, right? So.
To bring that past experience into this conversation, Gail thought, without having to spend money, what we can do is just make sure that everyone who's already has Washington Square Park in its scope is at least coordinating their schedules. It gave, I think, a small grant to Greenwich House to run the program, which means just to run the schedules and coordinate the schedules. It lacked money, and hence there was no data that came out of it. Is this just a nice thing to do, or does it actually work? And then, of course, it just kind of fizzled, the money around. But that question of working together, I think it was a good idea. And I hope that this is sort of the next step of that.
Yeah.
And that I would like also to us to work with the VITF to bring some of everything that they've learned into, the work of the community board as well. So we can sort of be a more public facing conversation that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, what else? Anything else? I don't see any questions of members of anyone out there. And how will this move? Wait, I'm just looking at my own questions. What input can the community share? We've done this. What does it accomplish? We've heard about this. How does it work? We know. Okay, so I think what we will do is we're going to go into business session. We're going to thank you all very much. We're going to ask if maybe we can call you guys in 4 months, have you come a couple of
And if
2
we
or
can
3 times
invite
a
more
year.
people, like, to
Yes.
meeting,
I think we should all be invited.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't all have to be invited to the
Altogether, yeah,
meeting,
but, like,
but we should all be
share-
invited to like the WhatsApp group or the email list
yeah,
so that
or
we
even if
can.
you don't want to come sometime, or,
I mean, I
You
think
know,
you'd find
send
it,
someone else.
and Eric hit it on the head, like, the reason these aren't, public meetings is just that, like,
Yeah.
we're there to solve problems, and it's an hour, and we stop after an hour, and it's a quick pace, but everyone's there. And yesterday's meeting was really like, it felt like, oh, this is why we're doing this, because people are talking, connecting some dots, filling the gaps, and,
You get somewhere.
we get somewhere. I just kind of
Yes.
wonder, like, this has to be somebody's job somewhere.
Oh, Carter,
But-
is Carter there? Oh, yeah, Carter. Okay, so Carter Booth on CB2. You have raised your hand, so let me promote you to panelist. Carter, you should be promoted now, and soon we shall see you.
Hey, Susanna. Sorry, I'm on my phone outside. I really wanted to thank Brian and Vanessa. I mean, this task force is a long time in the making. It's been talked about, at the 6th Precinct Community Council. I don't know if any of you guys attend those meetings, but this is really a product of the community's work and people coming together and solving problems. So I really want to commend you guys on that work and really pulling together some of the key players. Just even hearing Calvin's name mentioned here in this meeting. I mean, somebody who's out on the street every day seeing what happens and just really helping to put services together with people, because I think that that's something that hasn't been happening as well. And it's also something I noted in listening earlier for 311. A single complaint doesn't always yield results. And I think that what Brian may not have said is what they're told, and we're all told at different meetings. You have to hit a certain number of complaints to rise to another level of attention. And that's why it's so important to get your community together.
That bears repeating. You need 5
You need
311
5,
complaints
yes,
about a
for the
single.
same address.
For the same
So
address.
that's why they'll send the police right away if you can get 5.
5, and it has to be the
And-
same address and the same complaint. So that's what we do on our app, is we say 354 6th Avenue, encampment, 2 men, drug use, drug whatever, and and so they cut and paste. And this is what we were told to do. And thank you, Carter, for bringing that up. It's like,
it's
that's
bringing the
system
it's very important. And all of the 311 complaints hit all 3 of the community affairs officers' phones. Every time a 311 complaint is made, it flashes on the community affairs officers' phones in the 6th precinct. And I've seen it. I mean, they've shown me that this is what's happening. So I just really want to thank you guys for going out there and getting everybody together. And the biggest thing is thanking the providers also for doing the work and the successes. And I think, Susanna and Ryder, they pointed out, we've been hearing how hard it is to get responses from individuals. And it's nice to hear that there's a broader support, because I think Susanna touched on something, which is, at the 6th Precinct Community Council meetings, people want results, but they don't always think it all the way through. And that's something that you guys have done. And I really want to commend you on that, for bringing back around the social services aspect into this and not just the policing. And I think that that's just really bears, is worth mentioning, that it's really been a success. And I've been getting these emails from probably very early on with the pictures of all the people who are members of our community, but they're not getting any help. So this is a very nice way to come around. So thank you guys for doing this, and thanks to all the agencies for participating. Now, I just also want to point out that CB2 is a member of the task force, and I don't know if we've sent an actual member, but I believe
We're not, yeah, we have a slightly
participates,
different
so-
role.
We principal advisors.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
principal advisors.
And we also don't have a representative, from, or a board member, officially that attends the 6 precinct meetings as well. Mark, I know, goes to them, and that connection point is very important because a lot of this work has been talked about each month at the precinct community council meetings for some time. So,
I also want to
thanks, guys.
say
Thank you.
thank you to Vanessa and Brian and Scott, but also thank you to the DA's office and thank you to the mayor, because they've been working on their own for a while, but for the city to provide access to these agencies is really,
That's amazing.
is really a great privilege, resource, whatever. All right, I
Don't forget,
Anything
Mark has been attending almost every meeting, and he's given
Yes,
some
yeah.
valuable insight from his experience with the Landmarks Committee.
So we love Mark too. All right, well, I'm gonna just thank everyone and thank you all for being here. Thank
Yeah,
you
and
so
if you want
much.
to email, we can connect and invite you to some.
We'll
Like you to
figure
get
all
in
that out,
inside, it's
and
really
we're gonna go into
something.
business session and
Okay.
we'll,
Good luck with your
say goodbye to you
quorum.
guys. I know.
I'll be next.
You're supposed to bring the cookies. The guests were.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Great to see
Bye.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric, and tell Estelle that you guys ably represented.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I hope the rest of the meeting goes well. Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Terrific.
Take care, take care.
Thoughts? Resolution?
I don't think a resolution. is called
No,
for.
no,
I don't think so.
neither do I. But does anyone else? No. Okay.
Resolution.
Okay, good.
Glad you brought them though. That was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important because they're doing very good work. And one of the reasons they get to do, I mean, they do very good work because they're committed. And also, I mean, they have this unbelievable access. I mean, I'm telling you, you can't believe who was at this meeting. I was like, there are 20 people in this room. The deputy mayors were in there. It's just phenomenal. And then at first I thought, I've only attended 2 meetings and they were both of the social services aspect. And my first meeting, there were about 20 people there and I'm like, I don't see how anything's gonna get done. But no one was grandstanding, no one was speaking, and they came in with a list, like a booklet like this. But this was a tool, and it was like, what do you know about X? What do you know about Y? I saw her yesterday, da-da-da-da. They had, he's got a warrant for his arrest. He's da-da-da-da-da-da. They had like very specific profiles on each person, and they're really dealing with the one-on-one. So
Does the social service group convene every 2 weeks?
they have two. So there's
Every other.
social services once a month.
Okay, they're each once a month because.
They have fortnightly
Yeah.
meetings and they alternate
I got it.
topics, yes. But the 3 chairs, I think, go to all the meetings. And I'm now finally invited to go to the meetings, and Mark is invited to go to the meetings.
Cool.
But I do think that the point of democratizing the inflow and the outflows. Yes.
Yeah.
The inflow's like the mechanical.
Having to hack 311 is like wild, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's silly. And I also do think, to your point on like how encouraging it is to see that meeting, like I would love for community members to like, all of us to like grow our understanding of the way these things intersect and like just have a bigger picture view. And so I get that like this should be a closed meeting, but I want folks to have a flavor of it, right? And like an appreciation for, and myself included, appreciation for the complexity and the time and the, like, it would be cool to be able to get that out.
Well, I think it might be nice
democratizing
for
the
us
access,
to-
but also like
getting
building a
crisp on the
puzzle.
report out.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't think there is one right
If
now.
people are interested, what we
Fresh.
should do is, I don't think we should all be going to these meetings. I don't think that's appropriate,
No.
but I certainly think we could take turns.
Yeah.
And, and bring stuff back or have ideas for future meetings of ours or bring input into that. I mean, I've mostly listened and asked questions, like, what would you like to have if you could have something? Like, what would solve this problem? Only, for our limited platform of asking for things that no one gives us, at least we can ask.
I should have asked, do they have any publicity that they do I mean, for instance, if they had a sheet about who they were and what they
Right.
did and how you can call 311, I could put it up in the lobby of my
Right,
mailroom of
right.
my building.
Right.
Or if you
And-
want to say 311, join this WhatsApp group.
Or I could.
Go right to the deputy mayor.
Yeah, I don't know, 100,000 people in our community district.
Wild WhatsApp.
It's gotta just be the block.
It's a tricky thing, right? Because
It's
there's
tricky.
this always this tension between efficiency and participation, right? Like if too many people participate,
All right, so
what happens is
associations, what if, don't they all have block parties every year or whatever? Could there be a place there to have a,
I don't know. I mean, I certainly think that in terms of getting information into them, I mean, you know, 311, the community board, the elected officials, those are all
we're getting it out, we're talking about getting it out, and I think
getting
that's.
it out. I think, yeah, I think they should definitely come to us.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 or 3 times a year. I mean, we spent a lot of time today talking about how it works, but we could be talking.
Yeah, the very fact that they coordinate, which is great, that should have happened a long time ago.
Right. I mean, basically, it's like getting people.
It's a miracle that they all
Yeah.
come together, but wait a minute. Why did?
Because
And
that's,
there should be interagency task forces for other less well-resourced neighborhoods
Right.
in the city.
Why doesn't this go to 14th Street? My
and it
neighborhood.
also, in fact, there shouldn't be
Where I
any
live.
need for an interagency task force because agencies should connect with each other.
Well, I mean,
That's all, I mean, but yes.
there is a cost to the agencies. I mean, the cost, like, I mean, to send 20 people
I mean,
once
that's
a month.
No, it's not.
Okay, then we'll have an
It's a cost.
So you gotta be loud to get
It's
these.
not a budget cost, but there's a time commitment. That's,
So-
Interesting.
It's nice to have a
Super, super
Very glad they came.
Sure.
Yeah.
yes, okay,
I
good.
mean, like, this is fascinating.
thank you.
Just
Do you
getting
want
the
their
list.
math? I think they only give us.
Yes,
one
I'm
copy of
gonna
it.
include, I'm gonna get a digital copy and.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks, everybody.
Perfect.
Close the meeting, say goodbye to everybody.
Very efficient.
Happy
Like-
rainy weekend.